Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So today we are reading from Surah Ankabut, inshallah, and we are up to verse 24. So Sadiq, I'll start, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Abraham prevails, but the only response, this is what we're up to, right, Mr. Sadiq?
No.
Okay. The only response of Abraham's people was to say, "Kill him or burn him." But Allah saved him from the fire. Surely in this are signs for people who believe. He said to his people, "You have taken idols for worship instead of Allah, only to keep the bond of harmony among yourselves in this worldly life. But on the day of judgment you will disown and curse one another. Your home will be the fire, and you will have no helper." So Lot believed in him, and Abraham said, "I'm immigrating in obedience to my Lord. He alone is indeed the Almighty, All-Wise. We blessed him with Isaac and later Jacob, and reserved prophethood and revelation for his descendants. We gave him his reward in this life, and in the hereafter he will certainly be among the righteous."
It's interesting here. It says that he mentions alayhi salam that I'm looking at Quran Beheld's translation. You have taken graven idols apart from Allah while knowing better, out of mere politeness for the bonds of affection that lie between you in this life. You don't see this occurring other places. The reason why you've taken us, he says, مَوَدَّةَ بَيْنِكُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيا, because of a love you have between yourselves in this world. But it's a bit almost superficial, because in the hereafter, you will have, not only will you have يَكْفُرُ بَعْضُكُمْ بِبَعْضٍ وَيَلَعَنُ بَعْضُكُمْ بِبَعْضًا, you will, you shall renounce one another and curse each other. Whereas the believer's love, it's very intrinsic, and the Quran says, I think it's Surah in Furqan, al-akhillau, those close friends will that friendship will show itself in the hereafter. So if it's like a tree, no matter what appears like it, in the hereafter there'll be a lot of hatred. Ibrahim alayhi salam says. Ustaz Ahmed, I was just thinking, Ibrahim alayhi salam's people were not punished, were they?
I don't recall, yeah.
All these other prophets, their people get punished. It says he was saved
from the fire.
Yeah, but after killing a great prophet like that, I'm just wondering what happened to them. No, maybe we can ask each other questions too, not just.
Of course. The people of Lot. And remember when Lot rebuked the man of his people, "You certainly commit a shameful deed that no man has ever done before you. Do you really last after other men? Do you really last after other men, abuse the travelers, and practice immorality openly in your gatherings?" His people's only response was to say mockingly, "Bring Allah's punishment upon us if what you say is true." Lot prayed, "My Lord, help me against the people of corruption."
Here, it mentions three major sins of them. It says you're doing something that no one else has ever done. Perhaps it could be made an argument that homosexuality began with them. Although Fakhruddin al-Razi does say that maybe there may have been individuals before, but not at this level, and they really exceeded it. As for, and then again it says, you really come to men, but then it says, تَخْتَعُونَ السَّبِيلِ. Sheikh Nuh over here says, 29, and cut the road in violence and robbery. But there have been other translations given as well. Yeah. And you were doing openly wrong things in your own assemblies. No. So here, Lut alayhi salam's dua, it's as if he's asking for. Once a prophet realizes that there's more khair in the people being destroyed than good in them staying, they make these du'as.
which
Um,
must take a lot for them to come to that point, perhaps.
a lot, sometimes 950 years, almost like Nuh alayhi salam.
Abraham visited by angels. When our messenger angels came to Abraham with the good news of the birth of Isaac, they said, "We are going to destroy the people of this city of Sodom, for its people have persisted in wrongdoing." He said, "But Lot is there." They responded, "We know best who is there. We will certainly save him and his family, except his wife, who is one of the doomed." The people of Lot destroyed. And when our messenger angels came to Lot, he was distressed and worried by their arrival. They reassured him, "Do not fear nor grieve. We will surely deliver you and your family, except your wife, who is one of the doomed. We are certainly bringing down a punishment from heaven upon the people of this city for their rebelliousness. And we did leave some of its ruins as a clear lesson for people of understanding."
It's popularly said that the Dead Sea, perhaps that's where the people of Sodom and Qawm Lut were punished. Allahu Alam, the Quran does say, but it was left as a clear sign, and it speaks to the Quraysh and the Arabs as if they knew of this place. I would personally like to look into more of this, and
It uses the word, I think, يفسقون, like the fisk, right? Here.
no,
Okay. And the angels had come and said that they were doing fasad, right, to Ibrahim alayhi salam, the people.
sorry, to Ibrahim alayhi salam.
Yeah, right. That's the word.
Okay. In أهلها كانوا ظالمين. Maybe another place it has that.
Okay. No, it is على القوم المفسدين, right? قال رب انصرني على القوم المفسدين.
Lut alayhi salam makes a dua now.
Says that against his own people. So, yeah. Okay. Previously destroyed nations, and the people of Ad and Thamud met a similar fate, which must be clear to you Meccans from their ruins.
No,
Satan
sorry, Ustaz Ahmed, you didn't read 35. 35 and 36.
Shuaib.
No.
Okay, all right. So, and we did leave some of its ruins as a clear lesson for people of understanding. Shuaib's people destroyed, and to the people of Midian we sent their brother Shuaib. He said, "O my people, worship Allah and hope for the reward of the last day, and do not go about spreading corruption in the land." But they rejected him, so an overwhelming earthquake struck them, and they fell lifeless in their homes.
We should look at some of the subtle differences in the wordings, although the stories are repeated. Here, obviously, the thing is not mentioned about the other things that he mentions about weighing the scales and all that. But he says, "Oh, my people, worship Allah and hope. Warju yawm al-akhirah. Have raja for the, have hope for the day of the last day." No.
Previously destroyed nations, and the people of Ad and Thamud met a similar fate, which must be clear to you Meccans from their ruins. Satan made their evil deeds appealing to them, hindering them from the right way, although they were capable of reasoning. We also destroyed Korah, Pharaoh, and Haman. Indeed, Moses
Here, وَكَانُوا مُسْتَبْصِرِينَ, while they were as keen in insight as anyone would have had to be. That very last you said, although they were capable of reasoning, while they were as keen in insight as anyone would have had to be. If you notice, we looked at the other one, وَجَحَدُوا بِهَا وَاسْتَيْقَنَتْ أَنفُسُهُم. They denied it while their souls had full yaqeen of it. Here, Satan made their deeds appear beautiful for them, and that prevented them from the way, even though they were very clearly seeing with insight, almost like black and white. Because when prophets come, the difference between haqq and batil becomes very vivid, not like confusing times like that we perhaps live in. No.
We also destroyed Korah, Pharaoh, and Haman. Indeed, Moses had come to them with clear proofs, but they behaved arrogantly in the land, yet they could not escape us. So we seized each people for their sin. Against some of them, we sent a storm of stones. Some were overtaken by a mighty blast. Some we caused the earth to swallow, and some we drowned. Allah would not have wronged them, but it was they who wronged themselves.
Yeah, it's interesting. Qarun is mentioned first before Firaun, perhaps because the surah is emphasizing the blindness of close people to the prophets. Qarun was from his people. Um, um, Allahu Alam. There's this, you find scholars even till today, they have followers more from countries outside of the country they're from. No. And the order of the punishments matches the order of the surahs, of the stories mentioned in this story, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Allah is the mighty protector. The parable of those who take protectors other than Allah is that of a spider spinning a shelter, and the flimsiest of all shelters is certainly that of a spider, if only they knew. Allah surely knows that whatever gods they invoke besides Him are simply nothing, for He is the Almighty, All-Wise. These are the parables we set forth for humanity, but none will understand them except the people of knowledge. Allah created the heavens and the earth for a purpose. Surely in this is a sign for the people of faith.
We've also heard from a scientific angle that the actual spider web is quite strong. And from the angle that I've heard famously that if it was enlarged, it could stop a flying jet. I never forget this famous Afghan imam who had come to Sydney. May Allah have mercy on him. His interpretation of that once he gave to us was, he said, his name was Maulana Hadid, rahimahullah. He said it's the family structure of the spider's family is very weak, and that they could eat their own children or something. I remember him saying.
I think it says the young eat their mother in this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Since some species are cannibalistic with the female preying on the male and the young eating their own mother.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, there you go, yeah. So it was it could be from that perspective, or it could be that just from a human angle. For us, if the spider web is very weak, you can just move your hand through it. That's what Allah Alam. Yeah.
Advice to the Prophet: recite what has been revealed to you of the book and establish prayer. Indeed, genuine prayer should deter one from indecency and wickedness. The remembrance of Allah is an even greater deterrent, and Allah fully knows what you all do. What just was in the Salat tanha anil fahsha wal munkar? Okay. Famous verse. The hadith, the Prophet, I think we would all know, where he asked his companions, if you were to wash yourself 5 times a day in a running stream, would you have any would you have signs of any filth, dirt? And they say, no, Ya Rasulullah. Then he gives the example of Salat and how it cleans one of their sins.
Here it's, however, saying that the salat prevents you from doing committing sins from the fahsha and the munkar. I've heard the opinion that it eventually does that in your life, or if you were to do it with its proper way, if you establish the salat iqama, not just pray it. Allahu alam.
Yeah. It's hard to have two things in one place. You can't just keep doing one thing and the other at the same time, like over time, especially if you're doing one properly. Because when you sin, I think there's a justification process, but also you switch off your conscience as well, temporarily. But then when you're praying, then you switch on your conscience, and you remember Allah. And you always say, Saad Hoca, vicdan yalan söylemez. The vicdan, the consciousness doesn't lie, or it recognizes. I think as long as it's switched on, it becomes harder to sin. Allahu Alam, but yeah.
No.
Arguing with the people of the book. Do not argue with the people of the book unless gracefully, except with those of them who act wrongfully, and say, we believe in what has been revealed to us and what was revealed to you. Our God and your God is only one, and to him we fully submit. One last revelation.
Here,
Similarly,
just as a reminder that the way we interact with the Ahl Kitab, Christians and Jews, it's not all the same. For some people, more softer speech, more softer approach works. إلا بالتي هي أحسن. Sometimes people get caught up in theories and conspiracy theories, and they're all true, and we shouldn't let, however, politics and all that affect how we deal with people. We are people of a book, of a revelation, and the Quran calls us to a particular level of ethics. And we have the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the way we should approach things. So sometimes, إلا بالتي هي الأحسن. Sometimes, however, إلا الذين ظلموا منهم. As for those of them who cause a lot of corruption and tyranny, then perhaps with them you don't have to take that very soft approach. Allahu alam. But we shouldn't all put them together in one category.
it's a general case, right, Ustad Sadiq, that we treat them properly, nicely, except when we are mistreated, and as in there's justice that needs to be established, and that's the general reading of the seerah as well. Right? The Prophet engaged with Ahl Kitab in that way generally, unless they plotted against him, like those Jewish tribes.
Some people, that's from the Christian community, they're very keen on having a debate or proselytizing or converting you, evangelical perhaps we may call them. Sometimes with them, too much of a soft approach doesn't work. You can just say, okay, well, the example of Jesus is like the example of Adam. You can use some Quranic arguments. But for the other ones who there's so much differences and they're more willing to just come together, common ethics, more softer approach can be used. Our God is one, your God is one. We can recite, just like Jafar then recited the verses from Surah Maryam. You start with the commonalities. So anyway, I think these verses show that there's different approaches and we have to know when to apply when.
One last revelation. Similarly to earlier messengers, we have revealed to you a book of prophet. The faithful of those to whom we gave the scriptures believe in it, as do some of these pagan Arabs. And none denies our revelations except the stubborn disbelievers. You, O Prophet, could not read any writing even before this revelation, nor could you write at all. Otherwise, the people of falsehood would have been suspicious. But this Quran is a set of clear revelations preserved in the heart of those gifted with knowledge, and no one denies our revelations except the stubborn wrongdoers.
I didn't want to interrupt because I came late, but remember that in Ali Imran there's the ayah of the Quran called Ya Ahl al-Kitab ta'alu ila kalimatin siwa. So the common ground, it is the default position. Finding a common ground is the default position. The Prophet ﷺ would not have commanded for the expulsion of certain Jewish tribes if they didn't violate their contracts. So when we look at, and I'm talking about from Medina, when Medina was established, there was what later day scholars call a constitution. I don't want to get into all of that debate, but it's been termed as a constitution. Some people try to debate the issue whether it was a constitution or not, whatever. But the agreement in Medina had a place for especially the Jewish community. So we need to remove ourselves from the propaganda that sometimes comes from outside of us. Sometimes it comes from within ourselves because of geopolitical situations. The reality is that when when the Christians of Byzantium were fighting the Persians, the Muslims ruled it for them because they were closer to the to Tawhid. Even Ibn Taymiyyah, who has a staunch critique, sometimes you will find that the way that he deals with the situation is looking where there's truth, where there's not truth. That has been the way of the scholars in general. You know what I'm saying? So I think that Muslims never ethnically cleansed Christians from Egypt. That's why the Coptic peoples are still there. The same thing with Syria, the same thing with Turkey. We need to be very strong on this point. But we also need to be strong. The Christians and the Jews have not been very nice to us. They've been extremely aggressive. They've come into our lands with armed struggle, and they haven't found grounds to regard us. And that has been the case since since the last 500 years. So even when you go back and you look at Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, how he dealt with them, there's testimonies where the Christians at times they wish that they were under Muslim rule because of what they were experiencing. I wouldn't. I think nowadays all of us are skeptical of whoever's rule we're under. We're looking for our humanity. We're looking for Quranic values to be realized and implemented, whether it's Muslim or not Muslim. We're looking to just have the basics of life. That's where the world has gone to right now. But the religious hatred that modernity has caused, because modernity has also the modern life, the economics of it, the political organization of it, the dealing with the material world resources, how we look at nature, it has caused fundamentalism to rise. This stuff is not a theoretical point just being generated in this circle here. There's actual studies on this, sociological, anthropological studies, how it is that the modern world has generated a sense of fundamentalism. And when you compound that issue with the history of the last 500 years of colonialism, especially the last 100 years after the fall of the Khilafah, and the reason why I say last 500 years because of the issue of the Crusades, and then when you add on this last 100 years and the advancement of modernity within the last 200 years, you have a situation in which people are just like not knowing how to get along. Now, some people say, well, when you zoom out, you look at the data, there's less killing, there's this, that, whatever. I don't want to relativize that. We all know because we live in these environments as minorities, numerical minorities, not minor in terms of dignity. And you see the at times the racism, at times you see the treatment, and the same thing when you look at foreign policy, you look at the reality of the UN, how countries are treated. We just live in a world where standards have some standards have been elevated above others, but religion shouldn't be thrown into the mix because the prophets have to be the standards of religion and also the best of their religious teachers. Let's be fair to that. Right. And so I'm a little long-winded to say that we shouldn't get caught up in the geopolitical, but also we shouldn't apologize in the name of holding hands, because they definitely are supporting policies right now that are eliminating Muslims. You know what I'm saying? And they're doing it with, some of the Christians are waiting for the return of Jesus. Some of the Jews are waiting for the third temple. And so the only reason why Netanyahu was able to do what he was because he was able to call on religious symbolism in many ways. So the religions of the world have retreated back from protecting humanity in the name of religious bigotry. But the Quran is telling us, like, let's come to a common ground. Nubuwwah itself, in any proper understanding, and Dr. Sadiq can correct me if I'm wrong on this, we believe in the Nubuwwah of all of the prophets. Jesus, Moses, all of them. That's Quranic. and to disengage from that is kufr.
I think
So so that's important.
if evil's been done and by any religion, in the
Yes,
name of religion,
yes,
it's the first priority of the
or by any religious person.
by any religious person or politician using
Yes,
religion. It's
yes,
the job of the ulama of that religion to speak out loudly against it.
yes,
Silence can sometimes be accepted, but when religion itself has been changed and in the name of religion violence has been done or wrong, then the scholars of that religion have an onus on them to
and
defend
and even
the it's very sad that we see sometimes, but
uh,
subhanallah, many of our Jewish brothers, whether they're scholars or not, brothers, cousins, let's call them, they have spoken up, but many of them have had this deafening silence. And same thing we can say with our Christian brothers and sisters because their country support it.
and the same thing with us. Like when it comes to, if we're gonna be people of religion in the modern materialistic secular world, atheist world, then we should have a standard for all of humanity.
Okay.
Whether it's a Buddhist that's oppressed, an atheist that's oppressed, anybody that's oppressed because it's violating our standards, on how we deal with humanity. And until we get to that level, we're not going to solve this problem. So we should be
No.
very clear not to uh, fall into the religious trap. That's extremely important.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Just with the wording of verse 47, some people, those who have been given the book, believe in it, as do some of these pagan Arabs. It's not appropriate to call them pagan Arabs after it's mentioned they believe in it. So I like the other translations. Allahu alam. وَمِنْ هَؤُلَاءِ مَنْ يُؤْمِنُ بِهِ. And of these now at hand are some who believe in it as well. We have to just be aware of the context. If the Quran is saying some people believe in it, then we have to be a bit more delicate with our wording, in my opinion. Allahu alam. Where did you finish reading, Ustaz Ahmed?
Verse 49, I read.
You read that?
Yeah.
Okay.
The pagans, yeah.
But also 48, the wording, I've seen some scholars get very discomforted when the ummi attribute of the Prophet ﷺ is spoken of in particular ways. Yeah, one of the main reasons the verse explicitly says is that the Prophet ﷺ was prevented from some of these things, divine protection, so that people don't doubt. And his ummi-ness, if I make it English, is that he was sort of kept unlettered from the batil thoughts that was around in his times. And also to prevent people from doubting. That's the main thing. Otherwise, we have to be a bit more careful in how we describe certain things of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Where was it that you with the whole issue of the pagan Arab thing? That's in Ankabut, right?
Yeah, verse 47.
Yeah.
Verse
Yeah,
47.
because I'm trying to.
وكذلك أنزلنا إليك الكتاب فالذين آتيناهم الكتاب يؤمنون به ومن هؤلاء من يؤمن به.
Right, because with my translation, for just as we have given revelation to other messengers, O Muhammad, we have sent down to you this Quran as the book of God. Thus, some of those to whom we have previously given the scriptures believe in it, and some of those with no revealed book believe in it. Yet
Yeah.
none disavows. Because I was trying to understand even how he justified that.
Yeah, so I was just saying because they believe in it, the word belief is being used.
No, but how did
Dr. Mustafa Khattab has put in quotation marks pagan Arabs.
But how does he justify that usage?
I think because he's saying that from the people of Quraysh, the Meccans, there are some who believe in it. Well, if they believe in it, then they shouldn't be called pagans. That's all. That's my point.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And then what does Noah, Sheikh Noah say?
He says, and of these now at hand are some who believe in it. Yeah. Tamam, Ustaz Ahmed, sorry. أكثرنا عليك.
No problem, inshallah. The pagans demand signs. They say, if only some signs had been sent down to him from his Lord. Say, O Prophet, signs are only with Allah, and I am only sent with a clear warning. Is it not enough for them that we have sent down to you the book which is recited to them? Surely in this Quran is a mercy and reminder for people who believe. Say, O Prophet, sufficient is Allah as a witness between me and you. He fully knows whatever is in the heavens and the earth. And those who believe in falsehood and disbelieve in Allah, it is they who are the true losers. Hastening the punishment. They challenge you, O Prophet, to hasten the punishment. Had it not been for a time already set, the punishment would have certainly come to them at once. But it will definitely take them by surprise when they least expect it. They urge you to hasten the punishment, and hell will certainly encompass the disbelievers. On the day, the punishment will overwhelm them from above them and from below their feet, and it will be said, reap what you sowed. Advice to persecuted believers. O my believing servants, my earth is truly spacious, so worship me alone. Every soul will taste death, then to us you will all be returned. And for those who believe and do good, we will certainly house them in elevated mansions in paradise, under which rivers flow, to stay there forever. How excellent is the reward for those who work righteousness, those who patiently endure and put their trust in their Lord. How many are the creatures that cannot secure their provisions? It is Allah who provides for them and you as well. He is indeed the all-hearing, all-knowing.
Yeah, this could have been an indication to the Sahaba of, or an encouragement to consider migration. Before the verse that we read, وَلَا تُجَادِلُوا الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ وَلَا تُجَادِلُوا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ, sorry. One commentator said this may have been revealed about the Abyssinians. So this concept of hijrah was obviously around before the hijrah to Mecca.
Questions to the polytheists. If you ask them, O Prophet, who created the heavens and the earth and subjected the sun and the moon for your benefit, they will certainly say, Allah. How can they then be deluded from the truth? Allah gives abundant or limited provisions to whoever He wills of His servants. Surely Allah has full knowledge of everything. And if you ask them who sends down rain from the sky, giving life to the earth after its death, they will surely say, Allah. Say, praise be to Allah. In fact, most of them do not understand. This worldly life is no more than play and amusement, but the hereafter is indeed the real life, if only you knew.
So for the big things, they believe in Tawheed, but for the small things, they commit shirk.
Perhaps also when it comes to the application of that in their lives.
No.
The disbelievers' ingratitude. If they happen to be aboard a ship caught in a storm, they cry to Allah alone in sincere devotion. But as soon as He delivers them safely to shore, they associate others with Him once again. So let them be ungrateful for all we have given them, and let them enjoy themselves for now, for they will soon know.
Here 64. And verily the final abode, it alone is the life that is vibrantly forever alive. Did they but know? وَإِنَّ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ لَهِيَ الْحَيَوَانِ. From the hay word. It's a bit of a very emphatic. It almost gives you like the hay ism that's manifested on earth and on the universe will be much stronger manifested in the hereafter. Dar al-Akhirah.
Warning to Meccan pagans. Have they not seen how we have made Mecca as a safe haven, whereas people all around them are snatched away? How can they then believe in falsehood and deny Allah's favors? And who does more wrong than those who fabricate lies against Allah? or reject the truth after it has reached them. Is hell not a fitting home for the disbelievers? I was thinking about this the other day, like a lot of prophets come to the Arabian Peninsula and there's a lot of destruction. Allah, brings down destruction. Like, would Mecca be a place where any of those happened, or was it always kept free of those destructions?
No, I think Mecca was a safe place. I say this because one of the prophets, when they got destroyed, I don't know if it was Hud, the people of Hud, or Salih. A man from that community had left that town, and then he had come and sought refuge in Mecca. And when he was in Mecca, he was safe. But as soon as he exited the Mecca, something came and he died on the spot. And our Prophet ﷺ told the companions, he's buried underneath me, and with him there's gold. If you want to dig it up, you can dig it up and find it. And I don't know if they did or not. I forgot of the details of that hadith. So based on that, from that memory, I believe Mecca in a way was protected from earlier times.
You could take it as like a general reading of that, perhaps. Yeah. The faithful reassured, as for those who struggle in our cause, we will surely guide them along our way, and Allah is certainly with good doers.
Subulana, our way, is plural. Sometimes when you start, Allah shows you the ways. الطرق إلى الله بعدد الأنفاس الخلائق. As it say, the paths to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the number of the breadths of creatures. Some become Qadiri, some Naqshbandi, some this, some that. Many ways to serve the deen and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay. So the Romans, Surah Ar-Rum. This Meccan surah takes its name from the reference to the Romans in verse 2. The world's superpowers in the early 7th century were the Roman, Byzantine, and Persian empires. When they went to war in 614 CE, the Romans suffered a devastating defeat. The Meccan pagans rejoiced at the defeat of the Roman Christians at the hands of the Persian pagans. Soon verses 31 to 5 were revealed, stating that the Romans would be victorious in 3 to 9 years. 8 years later, the Romans won a decisive battle against the Persians. Reportedly on the same day, the Muslims vanquished the Meccan army at the Battle of Badr. As the surah progresses, several blessings and natural signs are cited to prove Allah's infinite mercy and power, coupled with condemnations to the pagans for their ingratitude and for associating powerless idols with Allah in worship. This surah closes by beating the Prophet ﷺ not to be disheartened by what the deniers say. Sheikh Yusuf, you just talked about this, the Roman Christians. So, yeah. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, most merciful. From defeat to victory. Alif Lam Mim. The Romans have been defeated in a nearby land. Yet following their defeat, they will triumph within 3 to 9 years. The whole matter rests with Allah before and after victory. And on that day, the believers will rejoice at the victory willed by Allah. He gives victory to whoever He wills, for He is the Almighty, most merciful. This is the promise of Allah, and Allah never fails in His promise, but most people do not know. They only know the worldly affairs of this life, but are totally oblivious to the hereafter.
You know, we know the famous thing that Sayyidina Abu Bakr who went into a betting game with them, and he told the Quraysh. Now it's very important. The believers were always on the side of the Byzantines because they were monotheists, of the Christians. I come from a Persian-speaking background, and many people from my background will be offended. but they were not on the side of the Persians. The Quraysh were on the side of the Persians. They wanted them to, because they represented shirk. This is very significant. And the Quran doesn't choose to mention the Persian Empire. It alludes to them, but it explicitly mentions the Roman Empire. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr then we made that bet, obviously. And then when our Prophet heard it, he said, not 7 years, it's 3 to 9 years. Bid'i sinin could be 3 to 9. So he extended it, and indeed, on the day of Badr, they say, this victory came. يَوْمَئِذٍ يَفْرَحُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. On that day, the believers will rejoice. May Allah show us that same farah, inshallah.
Wake up call to the disbelievers. Have they not reflected upon their own being? Allah only created the heavens and the earth and everything in between for a purpose and an appointed term. Yet most people are truly in denial of the meeting with their Lord. Have they not traveled throughout the land to see what was the end of those destroyed before them? They were far superior in might. They cultivated the land and developed it more than these Meccans ever have. Their messengers came to them with clear proofs. Allah would have never wronged them, but it was they who wronged themselves. Then most evil was the end of the evildoers for denying and mocking the signs of Allah. I think this, like looking at other people, the Quran tells us to then reflect within our own selves, like perhaps tribes, but sometimes I think we just look at an elderly person as well, that, perhaps they're having difficulty to walk. And we could project ourselves into the future and remember that we will also might be in that state one day, and so that the arrogance, that ghafla doesn't come to us, or we don't feel superior to someone else in that sense. Yeah.
Have they not reflected upon their own being? He said he. أَوَلَمْ يَتَفَكَّرُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. 8. Have they not reflected within themselves? Sheikh Nu says, it's a bit more closer, I would say. في أنفسهم, within themselves. And it's like that other verse that's coming up. Allah mentions afaqi wa anfusi, signs. Signs in the macrocosm and signs within. He first mentions signs within, and then he mentions the creations of the heavens and the earth and what's in between them. But they only know the apparent of the world. The verse just before it mentions. But these anfusi signs are very significant. A lot of the times we think we have these rational arguments and people are going to convert, but it's a lot of the times it's his inner signs that are more significant. Verse 10, it says, the end of those who, how does it translate it? Then most evil was the end of the evildoers for denying. Sheikh Nu, he says, 10, and finally and direr, the end of those who did ill shall be most dreadful yet. For having cried lies. So the end of doing evil is what? Belying God's signs and mocking them, which is kufr. So sins lead to the way of kufr. And that's why that famous saying that scholars said, from every sin there's a way to kufr. You could use this verse to justify that. Allahu A'lam.
The wicked on Judgment Day. It is Allah who originates the creation and will resurrect it, and then to Him you will all be returned. On the day the hour will arrive, the wicked will be dumbstruck. There will be no intercessors for them from among their associate gods, and they will totally deny their associate gods.
The criminals will be dumbstruck, you said? Here it says,
yeah,
the committers of crime shall be wordless with despair. Wordless, so they're dumbstruck, but also with despair. I think that's really good because it captures yublisul mujrimun, the meaning of yublis. It's got connotations of being in despair as well.
I have utterly despondent. And the defiant unbelievers shall be utterly despondent.
The blessed and the doomed, and on the day the hour will arrive, the people will then be split into two groups. As for those who believed and did good, they will be rejoicing in a garden. And as for those who disbelieved and denied our signs and the meeting with Allah in the hereafter, they will be confined in punishment. Keeping up praise. So glorify Allah in the evening and in the morning. All praise is for Him in the heavens and the earth, as well as in the afternoon and at noon. 5 daily praise.
Some say you can extract the 5 daily prayers from the Quran. Maybe you can through some verses like this. However, it's not that easy. It's much easier to believe in the hadith. And when Jibreel alayhi salam came, led the Prophet pray one day, and then the second day he led them, and he said, in between these two signs. Naam. We don't need to sometimes force ourselves to find interpretations when the greatest interpreter of the Quran told us and walked the path. He was the walking Quran.
It probably can only be done so in light of the Sunnah anyway, like evening.
Exactly. We're doing it post. In hindsight, we can read the 5 daily prayers.
That's right. Allah's
sorry, those that don't look into the Sunnah, then tell them to extract the 4 rak'ats of Zuhr as well from the Quran.
Yeah.
Without looking, let's see how their insight takes them to.
Allah's power over life and death. He brings forth the living from the dead and the dead from the living, and He gives life to the earth after its death, and so will you be brought forth from the grave. Allah's signs, creation of humankind. One of His signs, these are your verses, Ustaz Sadiq. One of His signs is that He created you from dust, then behold, you are human beings spreading over the earth. Spouses. And one of His signs is that He created for you spouses from among yourselves so that you may find comfort in them. And He has placed between you compassion and mercy. Surely in this are signs for people who reflect.
Maybe mawadda wa rahma, maybe here it says, made between you tender love and mercy. I think Sheikh Yusuf will agree as well. Mawadda from wood, maybe the word love or tender love, more appropriate than mercy, because rahma is already there. Allahu Alam.
Yeah, that's what I have over here too. And of His wondrous signs is that He has created for you from yourselves mates, so that you may repose in them. And He has set between you a genuine mutual love and tender-hearted mercy.
Sheikh Yusuf, mawadda versus hub, is it a higher or more intense love, like would you say, or?
That needs an investigation on my part too, on the furuq al-lugha.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's definitely we definitely have to look at that angle from be more sensitive to the language in that regard.
We have to look into it, like Sheikh Yusuf said, Ustaz Ahmed. But I did read in one of my notes that the word wood was a stronger one, but it's just draft notes. I have to double check.
Yeah, and then like this thing of like this approach of synonyms, like here it says جعل بين الزوجين محبة وشفقة. This is like in the one of the encyclopedias that I was using, but I feel that that's like it's a cop out with the language of the Quran. You know what I'm saying? Like I think that what you're onto is more important. I can look it up while we keep going forward, but I think that the language of the Quran is a principle. Certain words are used intentionally, so we shouldn't we shouldn't gloss over the nuances.
Diversity, and one of his signs is the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the diversity of your languages and colors. Surely in this are signs for those of sound knowledge.
Muslim countries that don't promote the different languages within their countries, and they claim they believe in this verse, I think are absolute liars, particularly when countries ban languages of minorities from their own countries or mock the minority languages. It's just, I can't fathom it.
Sleep.
But it says it's a sign for those lil alimin. Obviously, those Muslim countries aren't in that category, alimin. That's why. No.
Sleep and work, and one of his signs is your sleep by night and by day for rest, as well as your seeking his bounty in both. Surely in this are signs for people who listen. Lightning, and one of his signs is that he shows you lightning, inspiring you with hope and fear, and he sends down rain from the sky, reviving the earth after its death. Surely in this are signs for people who understand. We know the process, and when he saw a thick cloud coming over, he would seek refuge in Allah for it may bring punishment with it, but then could bring rain as well. The universe, and one of his signs is that the heavens and the earth persist by his command. Then when he calls you out of the earth just once, you will instantly come forth. And to him belong all those in the heavens and the earth. All are subject to his will. And he is the one who originates the creation, then will resurrect it, which is even easier for him. To him belong the finest attributes in the heavens and the earth, and he is the Almighty, All-Wise.
While his is the highest supreme similitude in all the heavens and the earth, Sheikh Nuh says, وَلَهُ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. No. And now speaking of methods, Allah himself subhanahu gives a method in the next verse.
An example for the polytheists. He sets forth for you an example drawn from your own lives. Would you allow some of those bonds people in your possession to be your equal partners in whatever wealth we have provided you, keeping them in mind as you are mindful of your peers? This is how we make the signs clear for people who understand. In fact, the wrongdoers merely follow their desires with no knowledge. Who then can guide those Allah has left to stray? They will have no helpers. Yeah, it's a beautiful parable, isn't it? Yeah. Hold firmly to faith. So be steadfast in faith in all uprightness, O Prophet, the natural way of Allah which He has instilled in all people. Is this Fitrat Allah, Ustaz Zadok? The natural way. Yeah. Okay.
How do they translate it?
The natural way of Allah.
Yeah, I saw today a translation of this verse. It was a bit. It said the fitra of Allah. Yes, it's mudaf ilay, but you got to be careful. It could, for the English speaker, they might misunderstand. This is a better translation.
Let there be no change in this creation of Allah. There is a straight way, but most people do not know. O believers, always turn to Him in repentance, be mindful of Him and establish prayers, and do not be polytheists like those who have divided their faith and split into sects, each rejoicing in what they have.
Yeah, and if you don't do all these things, making inaba, turning to Allah, having taqwa and establishing the salat, you can eventually become a mushrik. And normally shirk would have been mentioned first, but the verse mentions it last. Maybe from an angle, from that perspective, it will would lead to shirk. Allahu Alam. No.
Yeah, I guess just this fitrat Allah, Ustaz Sadiq. I'm just looking at the tafsir here. It's the primordial nature that we have towards Allah, like recognizing Allah as being a Hanif, like at the very least. I know this is a different discussion altogether, but I just thought I'll have a quick look.
It's interesting, yeah, because the hadith says كل مولود يولد على فطرة. It doesn't say every baby is born on Islam, but it says it's born on fitra.
Human ingratitude. When people are touched with hardship, they cry out to their Lord, turning to Him alone.
Did you read verse 32, Ustaz Ahmed?
Yes, I think so.
Oh, okay.
Did you want to mention something there?
No. It's very talks to us today. Those who divide their religion and they split into groups. Shia kullu hizbin bima ladayhim farihun. We really have to make sure we don't fall into this cultish type of obsession with our groups as Muslims. Like Ustaz Yusuf was saying, take the Quran as a primary guide and raise our necks, look above the petty problems and be a bit more universal with the Quranic truths. And remember the Hablullahi and not be those who splinter into groups. No.
And
The
also,
verse is said in a very negative way. There's them, madhmoom, that type of an action.
and perhaps not make your group the end goal, but keep it as means as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Human ingratitude. When people are touched with hardship, they cry out to their Lord, turning to Him alone. But as soon as He gives them a taste of His mercy, a group of them associates others with their Lord in worship, becoming ungrateful for whatever favors we have given them. So enjoy yourselves, for soon you will know. Or have we sent down to them an authority which attests to what they associate with Him?
You mentioned different words with mawadda and hub. Sometimes the same word, وَإِذَا مَسَّ النَّاسَ ضُرٌّ. Sometimes it's the master of this word comes dur, sometimes it's dar. So even sometimes between a single vowel of the same master word, there's sometimes subtle differences. But I don't know what that it is right now. I'm just pointing that there could be subtle differences.
I found something, but it still needs greater tahqiq. I'm one of those that does like to investigate the subtleties of the language. But it says that here it says ثمة فارق بين المودة والمحبة. المودة محبة خالصة مقرونة بعمل يظهرها ويجليها. So but that still needs some tadqiq. It needs some research to kind of verify at a higher level. But it says that the difference between muwadda and muhabba is that the muhabba is at a higher level of purity, but is also accompanied by action, which demonstrates the love and it clarifies and manifests it.
So it is a bit higher in one way or the other.
Yeah, and I think one person, I think in the necklace, the dovetail necklace or something like that, Imam Ibn Hazm, is translated into English. He talks about love. So that is one thing that in the Arabic language, there's levels to the issue of love. That is, it would be nice to bring that out. I don't want to extend this further than where we need to go, but this is an idea for Isra. When you talk about a fiqh of marriage class, to bring these ideas in. I'm serious, like from the angle of parallel the ahkam with the psychological part, because in the Islamic civilization, and you find this across cultures, by the way, whether it's Turkish culture or whether it's Indian culture or Arab culture or Persian, you find a lot of talk about love. So in the Arabic language itself, there's levels varying levels of love, like there's varying levels of friendship. Those nuances are completely lost in the modern world, and I think that that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of confusion in sexuality, because there's that nuance is no longer there. But just
Mm.
like this, it's important. I think it's important for a solid understanding of human emotion to know that there's subtleties and differences. And
Thank
I
you.
apologize to everyone for
Yeah,
kind of.
for looking into that while we're moving forward, mashallah. Human impatience. If we give people a taste of mercy, they become prideful because of it. But if they are afflicted with an evil for what their hands have done, they instantly fall into despair.
That's a deep ayat. What do you think about that ayat? I find that that's a deep ayat. It's one of those ayats that's deep in terms of its understanding of the human being. You know, here I have that they've turned despondent. And if you notice in the chapters of the Quran that we have been dealing with, the states of the human being have been brought out. How the human being, how we as human beings react to life situations, and how the heart fluctuates.
And what I like about it is when the goodness, the rahmahs come, Allah saying it comes from Him. That's when the human loves it and then starts getting a bit of a big head about it. But when it comes to an evil, بما قدمت أيديهم, because of what their own hands have sent forth, they become in despair. That really captures our understanding of qadr. Ultimately, everything comes from Allah. كل من عند الله. However, this is how we're meant to see. When good comes, it's like the munafiqun are being described. They like to be praised for what they have not done. When good comes our way, it's really from Allah's rahmah. But when from our sins it comes, we need to remember ourselves. Naam.
Interest versus charity. Have they not seen that Allah gives abundant or limited provisions to whoever He wills? Surely in these are signs for people who believe. So give your close relatives their due, as well as the poor and the needy traveler. It is best for those who seek the pleasure of Allah, and it is they who will be successful. Whatever loans you give only seeking interest at the expense of people's wealth will not increase with Allah. But whatever charity you give only seeking the pleasure of Allah, it is they whose reward will be multiplied. Allah's might. It is Allah who created
Can
you.
I just say something? Whenever the verse, it's a common thing when Allah says He spreads the rizq in verse 37, it's usually juxtaposed with يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَقْدِرُ. And the other one, it says, He gives abundant. The opposite of yabsut is actually yaqbid. But the word yaqbid is not used. He constrains it. But yaqdir means he measures.
Mhm.
So either he gives plentifully or he measures. It doesn't say yaqbid. Perhaps if it was to say yaqbid, it would have gone against the sifa of Allah subhanahu ar-Razzaq. It's a bit more in line with what we imagine of Allah's.
And I don't know if necessarily that I don't, maybe my language skills are weak, but it says that here يبسط الرزق لمن يشاء ويقدر. So here is well al-atif. So that the reality of the giving is part of qadr. So that needs a lugawi investigation, a linguistic investigation, because if we separate it out as they're two opposed things, then the giving isn't not part of qadr. It's part of qadr. So the issue of yaqdir, I don't know if it's a, he's saying they translated it as He alone restricts here, but I don't know if qadr, like what you were saying, can
No,
we
all I'm
really
saying is yaqdir means like and withholds in exact due measure, Sheikh Nu says. All I'm saying is that yaqdir, the word is being used, not yaqbid.
No, I agree with that. I'm on the
Yeah.
same line of thinking that you are on. But what I'm saying here is that the I think that Sheikh Noah's translation is more on point, and I think that a lot of times we do bring this problem up, and it becomes a misunderstanding of qadr, and it reminds me when Ustaz he accounts for the issue of risk, and he says that there is something to the effect because I read it so many years back, but it came to mind for some reason right now. Rahmatullahi alayhi. When Ustad Sayyid Nursi he talks about the risk of Allah, and he goes, well, if some people are without provision, it's not because Allah wa ta'ala didn't give the risk, it's due to some sort of oppression in which the human beings are not fairly distributing. And the reason why I paused on that is the same reason that you paused on that, because qadr is so misunderstood by people, just as it's misunderstood in this concept of risk, it's misunderstood in the concept of its relationship to human responsibility. You know, and it shouldn't be that complicated, because the Prophet ﷺ told us that we shouldn't delve into qadr like the nations that came before us in the hadith ﷺ. So the Quran is not going to give us it's a paradox, but it's not a conundrum to the point where it's not understandable. It's just we know of it what we need to know, and that's it. Right. But it's somehow, some way, like these confusion points come in. So I don't know where they got the justification to use that kind of concept. Of that it's almost, they do almost give like the idea of al-qabd.
Allah's might. It is Allah who created you, then gives you provisions, then will cause you to die, and then will bring you back to life. Can any of your associate gods do any of this? Glorified and exalted is He above what they associate with Him in worship. I'll read one more. Maybe if someone would like to take over from here. Sheikh Yusuf, would you like to take over? Perhaps?
Where was it?
The problem with Sheikh Yusuf's reading is he reads so nicely, you don't want to interrupt because it just flows. You want to listen to the translation.
Verse 31, Sheikh Yusuf.
41, yeah. By the way, this is the only verse in the Quran that begins with the letter Va, if I'm not mistaken.
The spread of the corruption. The spread of corruption. SubhanAllah, this ayah has so much meaning to it. The corruption has spread on land and sea as a result of what people's hands have done. That theme keeps coming up, right? Human responsibility. Corruption has spread on land and sea as a result of what people's hands have done, so that Allah may cause them to taste the consequences of some of their deeds, and perhaps they might return to the right path. Say,
I've
O
had many
Prophet,
conversations with Sheikh Yusuf. He has a soft spot for the environment and the damage that's happening to the environment. This verse can be used as a evidence for that, because there's damage on land and on sea. Allahu Alam. No. Sorry, Sheikh Yusuf, I cut you.
No problem. Say, O Prophet, travel throughout the land and see what was the end of those destroyed before you. Most of them were polytheists. That's a heavy claim. When you talk about the ayat of Allah, right? These ayat here, it's a heavy claim. And the Quran could have been challenged on that point. Not that that's possible, but the point of the Quran is actually telling us to go and investigate. You know, anthropology develops as a science later on. And in reality, that's what the Quran is challenging us to do, an anthropological investigation of the peoples of the earth. Maybe not the same way that the academy does it, where you come out with a paper, but enough of it to inform faith. And so it's like, that's one of those points where Sheikh Abdullah Daraz is saying, like, look at how the Quran, if it was from the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, that type of position, a human being can only have a limited understanding. If he's not a prophet, he's just a human being, and he's making that type of claim, that could be invalidated. That could be invalidated.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to look at how that works, because there's a Sheikh Kampanji, and he's trying to say that the ayat of the Quran go against ilm, they go against science. In this case, there's ayat that go against ilm. So I think that we as Muslims, we need to make sure also that we have an understanding of how it is actually Al Quran يؤسس العلم. You know what I'm saying? Not the opposite. The Quran here is giving us the foundation for knowledge. That's why the Ijaz al-Ilmi, the scientific miracles, or that claim, became so controversial among the ulama of usul al-fiqh and tafsir. Because science itself is, as we know it, the methodology stays the same, but the knowledge is constantly changing and in flux. It's not thabit, right? It changes with regularity, because it's like at times it can be, a probable position that's taken. But here the Quran is saying that the Quran is establishing the foundations of knowledge. So how can we take something that's constantly changing to judge the Quran as true? You get what I'm saying? Because scientific data can change almost overnight. So scientific data is there in some instances just to highlight certain things, but it doesn't prove the truthfulness of the Quran. But in any event, all of these sciences, they're there to help us have certainty. But we should have certainty in the Quranic revelation itself. The successful and the losers. So be steadfast in the upright faith, O Prophet, before the coming of a day from Allah that cannot be averted. On that day, the people will be divided. Those who disbelieve will bear the burden of their own disbelief, and those who did good will have prepared for themselves eternal homes, so that He may generously reward those who believe and do good out of His grace. He truly does not like the disbelievers. Allah's sign, the wind. And one of His signs is that He sends the winds, ushering in good news of rain, so that He may give you a taste of His mercy, and that ships may sail by His command, and that you may seek His bounty, and perhaps you will be grateful. Warning to the disbelievers. Indeed, we sent before you, O Prophet, messengers, each to their own people, and they came to them with clear proofs. Then we inflicted punishment upon those who persisted in wickedness, for it is our duty to help the believers. This issue of clear proofs, brothers, have you, bil bayinat, right? That فجاءهم بالبينات.
They came with clear signs, perhaps, Allah Alam, the proofs, the miracles that these prophets displayed, like the Quran, the camel of Salih, the she camel. They're akhlaqi miracles. Allahu Alam. Wondrous signs. No, sorry. And they brought them unmistakably clear signs, Sheikh Nuh says.
Yeah, the thing about the al-bayinat, the question is, because you've talked about the ayat al-anfusiyya wa al-ufuqiyya and so on and so forth. And I wonder if in the other revelations they also came with those types of signs. If it wasn't just revelation or just miracles, because miracles actually are kind of minimal, even though they exist and they're foundational and we believe in them. But you have a number of different, like a complex of signs. I've never thought of that before, if it was the same thing in the other revelations. But in any event, even here, should we always read the signs of Allah only to, in the Quran to just be miracles? Or should we read it in the way that Ustaz reads it, and that there are complex of proofs. Maybe we could come back to that, but
Yeah, it's
something.
interesting. It doesn't just mean ayat, it's saying bayinat. You're right. Sometimes ayat and bayinat comes together, but here it's bayinat,
And it
which comes
seems that
from
here,
bayan.
yeah, and here it seems to be like it's the ayat, but it's like the discussion on muhabba and al wood. There is here the bayinat is like a high level of, it's like a sign, but there's like a now like a holding of account at a very high level because it's so clear that there's no mistaking, there's no room or consideration for doubt or consideration for misunderstanding because the term bayinat.
Well, that's why perhaps the verse says straight after what you described that there's a high level of accountability. So when the bayinat came, فَانْتَقَمْنَا مِنَ الَّذِينَ أَجْرَمُوا. Allahu Alam.
Yes, inshallah. Indeed, we sent before you, O Prophet, messengers, each to their own people, and they came to them with clear proofs. Then we inflicted punishment upon those who persisted in wickedness, for it is our duty to help the believers. SubhanAllah. Allah signs rain. It is Allah who sends the rain. It is Allah who sends the winds, which then stir up vapor, forming clouds, which He then spreads out in the sky or piles up into masses as He wills, from which you see rain come forth. Then, as soon as He causes it to fall on whoever He wills of His servants, they rejoice. Although they had utterly lost hope just before it was sent down to them. See then the impact of Allah's mercy, how He gives life to the earth after its death. Surely that same Creator can raise the dead, for He is most capable of everything. Then if we
As
send,
you know, Ustad used this verse to make it the basis for his arguments for the proof of the hereafter, perhaps 50, 100 pages, I forgot the exact. But it's a very amazing verse establishing a universal principle, Allah's rahmah, as displayed on the earth, how it gives life to after its death. In the same way, He does this at a universal scale, where He gives life to the dead. So if these universal names exist, that means they must continue in the hereafter. Otherwise, there would be discontinuity. But it's a long discussion, and then he goes into the Asma'ullah, how each of the different names prove and necessitate the hereafter. So just like we say wajib al-wujud for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the names necessitate, Allah's names necessitate the hereafter rationally. And he bases on this verse and some of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where in the past, some of our kalam scholars place the hereafter under the sam'iyat category, the topics of belief that we just hear, but it's not really, cannot be proven. But the Quran's approach to the hereafter is it's
nice,
very rational, because it's just like you see the dead earth coming back to life. So perhaps like Sheikh Yusufi was saying, it's a more Quranic approach than the kalam approach when it comes to proving the hereafter, or as some call it, kalamu jadid. Maybe we're in need of that. Now, maybe with the interest of time, we won't go into lengthier discussions.
I mean, the reality is here is that death is shown to be temporary too. That there is something, just like the resurrection is shown to be the norm, and life is shown to be the norm. Death is shown to be temporary, and even the definition of death among the scholars, I think in Ilm al-Kalam as a rational point, I think they do bring a nice, or even in Tafsir al-Inqita', يعني الروح من الجسم, is a separation of the soul from the body, but it's not annihilation as is understood. You know what I'm saying? That's something that that's very insightful on the part of Ustaz to bring up a universal principle that there's continuity of life. See then the impact of Allah's mercy, how He gives life to the earth after its death. Surely that same Creator can raise the dead, for He is most capable of everything. And if we send a harsh wind, which they see withering their crops, they will definitely deny the old favors right after. La ilaha illallah. The
Some
dead.
scholars are of the opinion that the rih is a harsh wind, and that the riyah is a good wind. There is this famous opinion out there, but very famous scholars like Imam Tahawi says that's not always the case.
Yeah.
Uh, because that person says I was given victory with a particular rih, and so, but perhaps from a balagha perspective, even Sheikh Nuh says here, and we had sent thereafter a blighting wind. No, Allah Alam.
The dead, deaf, and blind. So you, O Prophet, certainly cannot make the dead hear the truth, nor can you make the deaf hear the call when they turn their backs and walk away, nor can you lead the blind out of their misguidance. You can make none hear the truth except those who believe in our revelations, truly submitting to it. That in itself needs some tafsir. Allah's power of creation. It is Allah who created you in a state of weakness, and developed your weakness into strength, then developed your strength into weakness and old age. He creates whatever He wills, for He is the all knowing, most capable, fleeting life. And on the day the hour will arrive, the wicked will swear that they did not stay in this world more than an hour. In this way, they were always deluded in the world. But
Here
those
it says
gift,
they did not stay in the world for an hour. Sheikh Nuh is interpreted as saying they will swear they remained in their graves but a moment. It could be both. How long the grave period was that they stayed, they said it's not more than an hour, or how long this worldly life was. Sorry, I just cut you while you were reading. I
no, no,
know I've been told to wait for the.
I was
uh,
thinking, I was thinking, one of the things that we didn't do, uh, it probably should be done by people, is kind of see the introduction to that tafsir, to that translation. What was his methodology? Would be interested in knowing, even if someone can contact him or one of his students and ask that question. It would be interested in knowing what was his methodology, because there's some points that he brings in a certain nuance.
Yeah. Well, his
He
whole
does.
point, I think, was to focus on those nuanced balagha perspectives. That's why I'm trying to follow it. We had Dr. Suhaib Saeed join us, a few days ago when we did Juz 15. He's done a whole video analysis of Quran Beheld. And I'm sure there's other videos out there as well. Naam, Ustadi.
And on the day the hour will arrive, the wicked will swear that they did not stay in this world more than an hour. In this way, they were always deluded in the world. But those gifted with knowledge and faith will say to them, you did actually stay as destined by Allah unto the day of resurrection. So here is the day of resurrection which you denied. But you did not know it was true. So on that day, the wrongdoers' excuses will not benefit them, nor will they be allowed to appease their Lord. Advice to the Prophet. We have certainly set forth every kind of lesson for people in this Quran. And no matter what sign you bring to them, O Prophet, the disbelievers will definitely say to the believers, you are only a people of falsehood. That goes back to what we were talking about, the signs and bayinat and el-ayat and so on and so forth. It's almost like the Quran is, because when the Quran is saying, that reality, that uh, is it using kulli method? Min kulli method. Here, the term sign is not being used. Uh, illustration here in the translation that I have. So I think we should distinguish between al-ayat, al-bayinat, al-method. We shouldn't collapse all of those together.
Yeah, definitely.
We have certainly set forth every kind of illustration for people in this Quran, and what, no matter what kind of illustration we bring to them, O Prophet, the disbelievers will definitely say to the believers, you are only a people of falsehood. SubhanAllah. This is how Allah seals the hearts of those unwilling to know the truth. So be patient, for the promise of Allah certainly is true, and do not be disturbed by those who have no sure faith. I've I've I never really realized that Surah Al-Rum. I didn't realize that, especially this last part, is extremely epistemological about what knowledge is not, how to achieve knowledge, what delusion is, the levels of understanding of people, the levels of
Yeah.
understanding reality.
Yeah, it says, and those who have been given the knowledge and faith say, Utul ilma wal imana. Just the very last verse I've got here, it says, do not be disturbed by those who have no sure faith. Similar in meaning, but nor let those bereft of certainty
Hmm.
try to shake you from your own.
Yes, subhanallah.
يستخفنك shake you. And here Ali Una says, Allahumma atliqhu sarahan. The surah began with God's promise that He would help the believers to victory and that they would rejoice. It ends with reiteration of this promise, strengthening the determination of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the believers in the face of the harsh reactions of the unbelievers.
Subhanallah, you know what just came to mind here? That the Quran is possibly, at least in my just understanding with his limitations, it seems like the Quran is indirectly teaching us that there's this battle of the heart going on while we're engaging with other peoples, and that there is this impact that engaging with disbelief as is practiced and is understood and is spoken is lived out, that it does impact our hearts. And then there's it does impact our hearts, and there's these illustrations being shown that, okay, look at how this operates. People, when they're doing good, they're okay with the law. Then when materially they're tested or something happens that they're not doing good with the law, or when people are in a bad, they're being heavily tested, they scream out to Allah, and then when they get material benefit, they forget Allah, and then it's showing like, now they're showing like, look, don't let this group of unbelievers have an impact on your heart till you lose certainty or you lose your commitment to faith. So the Quran definitely is showing us that what it was at front and center. If you take these swords and you bring them together, is that our heart is being manipulated. Our heart is jumping, in into different phases. What's the dua? Ya muqallib al-qulub.
ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. Yeah, and it says, those with certainty, those without certainty, don't let them shake you from your certainty.
Yes.
It doesn't just say those unbelievers, those who don't have yaqeen in the hereafter, don't let them shake you from your yaqeen. So we have to, when we're dealing with people, we have to, like you say, we have to be mindful of the state of our hearts. Ustaz Ahmed, if Sheikh Yusuf, do you want me to read a bit or?
Yeah, so we've
How
got
we going?
about 11 pages of this juice, and I guess we could extend it in another 15 minutes. But yeah.
Tamam. Shall I read or?
Yeah, if you want to, inshallah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. If you can scroll down. Surah Luqman. This Meccan surah is named after Luqman, a wise African man who is quoted giving piece of advice to his son on one's relationship with Allah and the people. While the believers are praised, the pagans are condemned for their ingratitude, distracting others from the way of Allah, and for setting up idols as his equals. Similar to the previous surah, references are made to Allah's natural marvels, challenging the deniers to point out anything their gods have created. The surah concludes by warning humanity of the day of judgment, ushering in the next surah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the most compassionate, most merciful. Alif Lam Mim. These are the verses of the book, rich in wisdom. It is a guide and a mercy for the good doers, those who establish prayer, pay alms tax, and have sure faith in the hereafter. It is they who are truly guided by their Lord, and it is they who will be successful. distracting people from the truth. But there are some who employ theatrics only to lead others away from Allah's way without any knowledge and to make a mockery of it. Therefore, they will suffer a humiliating punishment. يشتري لهو الحديث. Whenever our revelations are recited to them, they turn away in arrogance as if they did not heed them, as if there is deafness in their ears. So give them good news, O Prophet, of a painful punishment. It's interesting they mentioned they buy, yashtari, theatrics, they employ, but yashtari also means, how does Sheikh Nuh translate it? While men is he who purchases fanciful, diverting tales of speech. Ustad Ahmed and I were at a fundraising dinner recently, and we had a psychiatrist, Dr. Omar Maghrabi. He was mentioning how it's a $500 billion industry, the things that distract human beings. And it's really about money as well, yashtari. There's a lot of money in it. Reward of the believers. Surely those who believe and do good will have the gardens of bliss, staying there forever. Allah's promise is true, and He is the Almighty, All-Wise. Allah's creation, He created the heavens without pillars, as you can see, and placed firm mountains upon the earth so it does not shake with you, and scattered throughout it all types of creatures. And we send down rain from the sky, causing every type of fine plant to grow on earth. This is Allah's creation. Now show me what those gods other than Him have created. In fact, the wrongdoers are clearly astray. Luqman's advice: worship Allah alone. Indeed, we blessed Luqman with wisdom, saying, be grateful to Allah, for whoever is grateful, it is only for their own good. And whoever is ungrateful, then surely Allah is all-sufficient, self-sufficient, praiseworthy. And remember when Luqman said to his son while advising him, O my dear son, never associate anything with Allah in worship, for associating others with Him is truly the worst of all wrongs. لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. Honor your parents. And we have commanded people to honor their parents. Their mothers bore them through hardship upon hardship, and their weaning takes 2 years. So be grateful to me and your parents. To me is the final return. But if they pressure you to associate with me what you have no knowledge of, do not obey them. Still keep their company in this world courteously, and
Yeah,
follow
that's
the
it.
way. Sorry?
We'll finish.
Still keep their company in this world courteously, and follow the way of those who turn to me in devotion. Then to me you will all return, and then I will inform you of what you used to do.
I think that's important, especially born Muslims need to be very sensitive, or those people who sometimes are heritage Muslims or born Muslims, whatever you want to see. Because here the Quran, Silat al-Rahim is extremely important. And so what happens at times, especially when you have people coming into Islam and their parents are not Muslim, people give them those new Muslims the advice, or they give them the impression that it's okay to cut their ties with their families because they're not Muslims, and where they have an obligation to their parents. It's just in those matters of disbelief or whatever. It's a, they don't follow them in that advice, but they still, it said, yet still keep company with both of them in this world in accordance.
Yeah,
You know,
ma'rufa.
yeah.
Amr bil ma'ruf. You have to still, the verse, is saying the total opposite.
Yeah, and that's important because that, especially, I don't know about Australia, but in the US, that was becoming extremely common as a teaching, and because we don't have spent time with the Quran or even the meanings of the Quran like this, these types of things just pass our way, and it's kind of natural to be like, oh well, they're kafir, they're this, they're that, and with that environment that we were talking about that has been created, we were talking about how we deal with the people of the book and others earlier. When you have a skewed understanding of how to deal with people, you end up in that, and that's a very dangerous place to put a person that's a new Muslim. To cut them off from their family in that regard.
No. Just from an Arabic perspective, so be grateful to me and your parents. Anishkuru li wa liwalidayk. That's very special language. Uh, our Prophet ﷺ did not like it when someone referred to him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala using the same verb from an Arabic perspective. Like, but here the Quran uses it. It's like the same verb is connecting to both words. It shows a lot of honor Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to parents. Now, verse 16. Sorry, Ustaz Ahmad, I confused you. Know that Allah will judge all deeds. Luqman added, O my dear son, even if a deed were the weight of a mustard seed, be it hidden in a rock or in the heavens or the earth, Allah will bring it forth. Surely Allah is most subtle, all aware, Latifun Khabir. Fulfill your duty to Allah, O my dear son, establish prayer, encourage what is good, and forbid what is evil, and endure patiently whatever befalls you. Surely this is a resolve to aspire to. Ustaz Yusuf, I never forget Ustaz Jamal, we were studying with him. He always pointed out this to us. Whenever there's good deeds of or good qualities of a believer mentioned, patience always comes at the end. Because if you do all the rest, calamities and difficulties will come your way. And he even said in the famous list of the 99 names, Allah's name As-Sabur is the last one. وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. The sabr always comes at the end, and here again it's come here. So when I see this, I always remember that comment of Ustaz Jamal. Be humble, and do not turn your nose up to the people, nor walk pridefully upon the earth. Surely Allah does not like whoever is arrogant, boastful. Mukhtal and Fakhur. Be moderate in your pace and lower your voice, for the ugliest of all voices is certainly the braying of donkeys. Allah's favors. Have you not seen that Allah has subjected for you whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on the earth, and has lavished His favors upon you, both seen and unseen? ظاهرة وباطنة. Still, there are some who dispute about Allah without knowledge or guidance or an enlightening scripture. When it is said to them, follow what Allah has revealed, they reply, no, we only follow what we found our forefathers practicing. Would they still do so even if Satan is inviting them to the torment of the blaze? The believers and the disbelievers, whoever fully submits themselves to Allah and is a good doer, they have certainly grasped the firmest handhold, and with Allah rests the outcome of all affairs. But whoever disbelieves, do not let their disbelief grieve you, O Prophet. To us is their return, and we will inform them of all that they did. Surely Allah knows best what is hidden in the heart. We allow them enjoyment for a little while. Then in time we will force them into a harsh torment. And if you ask them who created the heavens and the earth, they will definitely say Allah. Say praise be to Allah. In fact, most of them do not know. Allah's infinite knowledge. To Allah belongs whatever is in the heavens and the earth. Allah is truly the self-sufficient, praiseworthy. If all the trees on earth were pens and the oceans were ink, refilled by 7 other oceans, the words of Allah would not be exhausted. Surely Allah is Almighty, All-Wise. The creation and resurrection of you all is as simple for Him as that of a single soul. Surely Allah is all hearing, all seeing. Do you not see that Allah causes the night to merge into the day and the day into the night, and has subjected the moon, the sun and the moon, each orbiting for an appointed term, and that Allah is all aware of what you do? That is because Allah alone is the truth, and what they invoke besides Him is falsehood, and because Allah alone is the Most High, Most Great, Al-Aliyul Kabir. Human ingratitude. Do you not see that the ship sails smoothly through the sea by the grace of Allah, so that He may show you some of His signs? Surely in this are signs for whoever is steadfast, grateful. And as soon as they are overwhelmed by waves like mountains, they cry out to Allah alone in sincere devotion. But when He delivers them safely to shore, only some become relatively grateful, and none rejects our signs except whoever is deceitful and grateful. Warning of Judgment Day, O humanity! Be mindful of your Lord and beware of a day when no parent will be of any benefit to their child, nor will a child be of any benefit to their parent. Surely Allah's promise is true, so do not let the life of this world deceive you, nor let the chief deceiver, shaitan, deceive you about Allah.
La ilaha illallah.
وَلَا يَغُرَّنَّكُمْ بِاللَّهِ الْغَرُورُ. Now, the five keys of the unseen. Indeed, Allah alone has the knowledge of the hour. He sends down the rain and knows what is in the wombs. No soul knows what it will earn for tomorrow, and no soul knows in what land it will die. Surely Allah is all knowing, all aware. Alimun Khabir. The prostration. This Meccan surah, which takes its name from the prostrations of the believers in worship mentioned in verse 15, makes it clear that the Quran is a divine revelation and that Allah Almighty is the sole creator most capable of resurrection. Similar to the previous surah, a reference is made to the qualities of the believers and the disbelievers and the reward awaiting each. Both the end of the surah and the beginning of the next urge the Prophet ﷺ to turn away from the deniers and not yield to them. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, most merciful. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alif Lam Mim. The revelation of this book is beyond doubt from the Lord of all worlds. Or do they say He has fabricated it? No, it is the truth from your Lord in order for you to warn a people to whom no warner has come before, so that they might be rightly guided.
La ilaha illallah.
Allah's power of creation. It is Allah who has created the heavens and the earth and everything in between in 6 days, then established Himself on the throne. You have no protector or intercessor besides Him. Will you not then be mindful? He conducts every affair from the heavens to the earth, then it ascends to Him on a day whose length is 1,000 years of your counting. That is the knower of the seen and the unseen. I don't know why it says it like that, but the Arabic says Alimul Ghaibi wa Shahada, the knower of the unseen and the seen. I think observing that order is important. The Almighty, most merciful.
What do you mean?
Sorry, Sheikh Yusuf.
What do you mean?
Verse 6, it says, know that is the knower of the seen and unseen. But normally, Alimul Ghaibi wa Shahada, it's the knower of the unseen and the seen.
Yeah, we picked up on this translation in another section that has happened.
Yeah.
I think there's
maybe Dr. Mustafa Khattab did it because the English seen and unseen is more common.
Yeah, but here it says such is the sole knower of the realms of all the unseen and the seen.
Yeah.
The overpowering one, the mercy giving.
No. Who has perfected everything He created, and He originated the creation of humankind from clay. Then He made His descendants from an extract of a humble fluid. I was reading how this is a bit of a scientific miracle. A very small portion of that fluid. It's only a single sperm, right? Then He fashioned them and had a spirit of His own breathed into them. Creation breathed into them. And He gave you hearing, sight, and intellect, yet you hardly give any thanks.
La ilaha illallah.
The deniers of resurrection, still they ask mockingly, when we are disintegrated into the earth, will we really be raised as a new creation? The I really like the wording here. إِذَا ضَلَلْنَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. We fully become disintegrated, like lost our way. إِنَّا لَفِي خَلْقٍ جَدِيدٍ. I mean, I don't like the doubt, the questioning, the disbelief, but the word choice is just nice. Now, in fact, they are in denial of the meeting of their Lord. Say, O Prophet, your soul will be taken by the angel of death, Malakul Maut, who is in charge of you. Then to your Lord you will all be returned. If only you could see the wicked hanging their heads in shame before their Lord, crying, Our Lord, we have now seen and heard. So send us back and we will do good. We truly have sure faith now. Had
That
we
has been a
willed... Now?
sorry for cutting you off, but that has been a constant theme of the unbelievers within the last few surahs of the Quran. This idea of wanting to come back to the earth.
Yeah. And they regret you mentioned that. No.
Maybe we could finish this off, Ustaz Sadiq, and we can stop, inshallah.
Tamam. Had we willed, we could have easily imposed guidance on every soul. But my word will come to pass. I will surely fill up hell with jinn and humans all together. So taste the punishment for neglecting the meeting of this day of yours. We too will certainly neglect you, and taste the torment of eternity for what you used to do.
Okay, inshallah. I think we
The word
can.
forgotten is used there, obviously, but here, perhaps due to balagha, or maybe he thought Dr. Mustafa Khattab, it's not appropriate for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Sheikh Nur says, so taste for having forgotten you would meet this day of ours. Verily, we have forgotten you. Yeah.
We'll continue tomorrow, inshallah, and Surah Sajda. Inshallah, we just come up in a Sajda verse as well. So tomorrow, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah.
All right, assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Make dua for
Jazakallah
inshallah.
khair.
Wa
Alaikum
alaikum
salam.
salam.